Let's do a little review about what ATP is. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. You do need to know what it stands for because a lot of that is actually going to help you remember what is in it. So let's kind of break it down to determine what is in ATP. The word adenosine is actually a combination of two different words. Adenine refers to adenine. That is the nitrogen base in adenosine triphosphate. We'll look at more nitrogen bases once we get started talking about DNA, but right now you just need to know adenine. Okay, we've also got this OS part. This OS actually refers to a sugar called ribose that is found in ATP. Okay, and then hopefully you notice that triphosphate has the prefix tri, meaning you have 3 phosphates. All right, so let's take a look at what this molecule actually looks like, and I'm going to have everything color coordinated so you can keep track. So starting with the ribose, okay, this is a special kind of sugar. We've talked about 6-carbon sugars, but ribose is a 5-carbon sugar, so we're going to show it as a pentagon. Pretend that's a pentagon. This is our ribose. And ribose is kind of the central molecule of this big molecule. So ribose is a subunit of this molecule. Ribose is then attached to an adenine. And then the other 3, or the 3 phosphates are actually attached over here. Here's one phosphate, here's another phosphate, and here's another phosphate. Now, this is where the important stuff happens. So the major thing that you need to remember is that ATP is the energy molecule. Now, this is not one of the molecules that we talked about that are part of your diet or anything like that. So, of course, you take in a lot of sugar or a lot of protein, a lot of fat, and that gives you energy. However, on the cellular level, all of those have to be broken down to make ATP. And then ATP is then used throughout the entire cell as a source of energy. It's kind of the currency. It is the energy currency. So any reaction that has to take place in your body, in any of your cells, actually use ATP in order to fuel those reactions. And the main thing to realize is that energy that is stored in ATP is stored in this bond. This is a very high energy bond. So the fact that the energy is stored in between the 2nd and the 3rd phosphate means that anytime we need to free some of that energy, that bond has to be broken. In which case now you're going to have a DP. So when you only have 2 phosphates, that is called ADP. And notice how ATP was adenosine triphosphate. ADP is adenosine diphosphate. And then you have this free phosphate that's floating around. It doesn't just disappear. Okay, so, and you have to keep that in mind because when we start looking at cellular respiration, you'll see that phosphate again. It comes and plays a big role in making more ATP, actually. So this is really the main information that you need to know about ATP. In order for us to go from ADP and a phosphate to ATP, this bond has to be formed again. And for that bond to be formed, an influx or an input of energy has to be provided. So when we start talking about cellular respiration, you'll see that happen. This is the main thing that you need to understand about ATP, what it's made of: ribose, adenine, and 3 phosphates, and where the energy is stored in ATP, that 3rd bond, or the bond in between the 2nd and 3rd phosphate, and then how that energy is released. That bond has to be broken. and then that energy will be released. So keep that in mind. That's a little, very short review for you guys regarding ATP, but it's going to be vitally important for you to understand that when we start talking about cellular respiration and photosynthesis.